everyone. Welcome to another edition of Seconds Out Live. I am your host, Eamon Khan. Joining me today is this two in a row? Josh, you were there last week as well. Two in a row. It sounds like you're starting to build up a. Is it Snapchat dude streaks? This is a new streak for you to start off.
Absolutely, a new streak, a new dawn. Some would say, as I now think I think I might be taking the co-host role now. I think I'm working my way up the system,
You
or am I
don't get
still?
you don't just get the co-host role after 2 weeks in a row, Josh. Come on.
Listen, Eamon, this is unheard of for God knows how long now. I think, you know what? Instead of comparing it to anything or trying to make a title for it, let's just enjoy it while we've got it. Let's just enjoy it, because who knows what could happen? Who knows? This could be my last one for all we know. I highly doubt it, but let's just enjoy it. Let's just enjoy the 2 week back to back. Let's just enjoy it all.
We love a bit of confidence, or is it a false bravado? You need that little bit of delusion in the sport of boxing to get to the top. That's the truth. Maybe you need it as well in the boxing reporting world as well. And before we get into all the topic of conversations, because we've got another, I don't like using stat because stat card gets used every week in boxing, it seems. But we've got a number of good topics to discuss this week in a week of boxing as we look forward to the Birmingham card and more, and reflect on things that have happened recently, but also the blockbuster or bombshell of some sorts was dropped on me pre the start of the show. Josh had mentioned that he was paying £70 for his driving lessons. That's extortionate, right? I don't remember driving lessons being £70. Your bank account must be, I don't know where it is, Josh, but it must be screaming out for some help.
It's better now. Now that I'm not doing the lessons anymore, it's definitely looking a bit healthier. Um, for 2 hours though, for 2 hours, you're missing that key bit of detail there. So I wasn't paying £70 for the hour. 2 hours, yeah, £35 each hour. I don't think that's too bad. I really don't think that's too bad. I've seen worse.
Well, you're paying the worst, I think it is. Remember that show? You're probably too young for this. There was a show on I can't remember what it was called. It might have been on News Round, but it was on the BBC where they went up and down the country for the price of something. And it was like a Kit Kat. And up in like Scotland, you could get the Kit Kat for like 29p, but down in London, you were paying like £1.73 for the same Kit Kat. Do you ever watch that show?
Nah, sorry, I don't think I was around in those eras.
There we go. We got the first phrase off of the bingo card. No, just a little bit of an adaptation. This is what the streak gets you, that bit of confidence to come up with something new, Josh, on Seconds Out Live. But Seconds Out Live is a key, key, key again concept to it, is that it's not only us two talking and talking through the boxing topics. We need you guys in the chat as well, offering your questions, comments, remarks, whatever it is. You can also contribute to by clicking the like button, subscribing if you haven't already, and leaving a comment after the show. We get to as many as possible that we can. So please do offer those contributions where you can. So getting into the topic of conversation that is the headline for the show, Anthony Joshua. A lot of talk has happened this past week, mainly from Eddie Hearn, about the future of Anthony Joshua, the former unified heavyweight champion. Did it twice, winning the belts in the heavyweight division. But his future in the sport seems uncertain, and he might have 2 fights left before he retires, maybe a couple more. But the timeline seems to be closing down on him as his career seems to be going to a close. We haven't heard from him off of the back of this. But if AJ is to have those 2 fights and retire, do you think that is the case, Josh, or do you think there's more from him to come?
It's hard to gauge in this era with the heavyweight division. You know, a big talking point since Riyadh season has come into play and Turkey Al Sheikh is that the heavyweight division obviously does seem to get a lot more favour from it. So like fighters like Deontay Wilder, we've been calling for him to retire for ages now, and he's making another comeback. You know, Dillian White, for example, someone who we didn't really think's got a lot left to offer at the top, he's now going in there against Moses Atauma. You know, it's hard to say. I wouldn't be shocked if it is just two left, if it's the right two. If it's got to be the Tyson Fury fights. You know, I know Fury said he's happily retired and whatnot, but if you're going to do a 2-fight deal with Anthony Joshua, it's got to be a Tyson Fury fight and then a Tyson Fury rematch, because both fights will sell extremely well. But if it is going down this road of what was originally rumoured to be Dillian White and Jared Anderson, I think Dillian White now out of the picture with this Moses Atauma fight, I think you've got to go for more than two. If Tyson Fury's not in the mix and like I said, with Riyadh season and Turkey Al Sheikh, they can cough up the money that will want to bring Tyson Fury back, and the money that will get everyone interested. And it seems at one point that everyone was interested until Tyson Fury made the shock announcement of his retirement. So hopefully, if it is the Tyson Fury fights, I'd be more than happy to see both AJ and Fury, but particularly AJ, go out after that. But I still think there's more to offer. If he's going to go down with two simple fights like a Jared Anderson and someone else, I'd like to see maybe another two fights where he does challenge the top of the division again and not just try and go out with two easy wins and two easy paydays.
On his ledger is due to the fact that in recent years it's been a case of rebuild. He's done that rebuild, and that's led him to what was a emphatic KO defeat to Daniel Dubois, and this notion that there can't be another rebuild. So another rebuild might be another two fights on top of that, or three, to get him into a position. It's more the case of now it's just going straight into these fights. In an ideal world, maybe would, if this was 4 or 5 years ago, would it be another rebuild and then that big fight there? Is it a sign of the times where it's just, look, big fights, we want them now, and if you're in it, you're in it with 2 feet in, and if you're not, then get in and get out? How much do you think it is because of what has happened in his recent fights?
I think I kind of agree when Eddie has been saying that there's not enough time for a rebuild process. I agree with that. Anthony Joshua's at the back end of his career now. And as nice as it was to see the growth over those I think it was 4 fights he had as the rebuild. And you could see the improvement each time with the most devastating performance, arguably coming against Francis Ngannou, which might have been the weakest opposition, but it was the biggest stage and the biggest platform and where he really needed to deliver, and that's exactly what he did. And then going into that Daniel Dubois fight, it wasn't like the Usyk fights where he gave everything he had in both fights and just got beat by the better man. He got starched last time. He got dominated, and it's a lot harder to rebuild from that. And let's say that defeat to Dubois came at the time of the first defeat to Usyk, I think we would have seen a longer rebuild. I think it would only be around the back end of last year or the start of this year that we would have really seen him grow into those big fights. But now there's no time. There's not enough time to go and fight your Jermaine Franklins and your Hellenius. There's not enough time to go and do that now. It's down to the fact now his body's getting older. We've seen that he's had to have a random elbow surgery, which maybe not random, but it's never good when things like that are happening at this stage in your career. He's already had a long career. I think now you've got to go 2 feet in, like you said, Eamon, and target those big fights. It's the only option. There's no time. There's not enough time to go and take 4 or 5 fights. Get in there with your Furies, your Wilders, if Wilder's still knocking about, depending on how he gets on. I believe next weekend or next Thursday even, when he makes his return. Those are the names you've got to target, those legacy fights. They're the only ones that will be appealing to the public now, not another rebuild process.
Okay, I have a question to you, Josh, and I have a question to the chat coming up in the form of a poll. So you have some time to think about your response here, Josh, before as I go to the chat for the first time. And the question is that's going in as a poll right now. Vinny, the videographer, back in the backdrop, is going to sort this out for us. And the question is: will Anthony Joshua win another world title? Simply put, yes or no are the options. That is, will Anthony Joshua win another world title? Giving you some context to that is the current situation is an undisputed heavyweight fight is happening in the UK in London, Wembley, between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. Daniel holding one of the titles and Alexander Usyk holding the rest, a rematch from their fight in Poland. But the thought process seems to be that if Usyk does win, then the belts might fragment because Usyk has a couple of fights left on his own ledger, as he's self-confessed, and Daniel Dubois would be either or. If Dubois was to win on that side of the coin, would be the case that a lot of the mandatories are in place as well too, and we'll see how that goes on with mandatories being gotten over the line because there are so many waiting for an opportunity, and whether the fights and the wants are there for those mandatories. So you would think that with Dubois winning that, it'd be more of a possibility that those mandatories do take place, because a lot of them would be in-house, as Frank Warren holds a number of the heavyweight chess pieces. But that is the question, and we'll jump into the chat for the first time on this show and get your thoughts and comments, as one of the chats here just obscures my vision. But we'll go to Wayne Bullard first. It says, haha, why would he pick Deontay Wilder? He's on such a low, and there it is, the thing again in my way. I've just halfway about to read this gentleman's uh, comment, and then the poll obscures my vision. That is very annoying. Here we go. We'll get it up again. Uh, Technical difficulties aside. Here we go. Wayne Bullard. Haha, why would he pick Deontay Wilder? He's on such a low in his career. How does he deserve a fight with AJ? I think that there is a lot of waiting going on in the boxing world. And I believe that Anthony Joshua might be having a look at Deontay Wilder, because that is a fight that still holds some currency. If he comes out and knocks out Terrell Herndon later on this month, then Wilder can shout that he's back to the rooftops, and they can build that fight because it has a lot of history. I would imagine that be a fight that was high on the list of Anti Joshua's team to make, especially with the way that Wilder's looked in recent form too. Stephen Boyle says AJ versus Fury signed the contract. Doss says I can't sign it. Josh can't sign it. Let's get it on. I agree with you, but we haven't heard any sort of information that that is even a possibility right now, with Fury enjoying his time at Soccer Ray. Did you watch that Soccer Ray, Josh? Did you have a watch of it?
I did. I actually did watch Soccer Aid. I actually don't mind. I think it's quite interesting to really see too much of it, too much of the box world. Apart from Tony Bellew, who put in a stellar performance at fullback.
What did AJ? What did Fury say that was so extra?
Shouted, "We are Spartans," with a few F bombs in the middle of it at some point beforehand. They got the team fired up though. England still lost though. Typical England.
And everything that comes with it. Sasha English says, "Well, it won't be with Fury or Usyk or Dubois." Sasha also says AJ is not going into no mega fight. Would you call Wilder a mega fight? Would it do pay-per-view in the UK? I think so. AJ commands that pay-per-view status for the biggest fights, and I think that is one that would get some lapsed fans of recent years back in because of the history of the two of them. Yours truly, good to see yours truly. And he says AJ should have already retired. That's something I think Eddie Hearn has said previously, that if AJ showed even a percentage of slipping, then they'll ask him to leave the sport. Whether that has happened, don't know, but that is something I think Eddie Hearn has said in the past. Stephen Boyle comes back and says, Dave Allen versus Deontay Wilder. Get it. What do you think about this prospective Allen versus Wilder fight? Is that one you're in for, Josh?
I don't mind it. If it all comes down to how Wilder looks, I suppose, next week when he returns. And obviously great for Dave Allen. It's a great payday he'll get. Another headline at, I'm guessing, saying the O2, but I don't see why. Maybe take that fight up to Manchester, take it to the Co-op. I think it has the ability to do big numbers. Take it to the biggest arena. Wilder coming to the UK is always going to do decent numbers now. I wouldn't give Dave Allen a bad shot in the fight just because I don't know what Wilder we've got left. And I think the style that Dave Allen has, a fully fit Dave Allen, and hopefully going into this, I guess, final stage of his career, we're seeing a bit of a more in shape, more focused, more serious Dave Allen, which could be a problem. It really could be a problem. I think the style that he's got is a style that Wilder might not enjoy. Wilder likes having his space to have a look and see when he can land that shot, and Dave Allen doesn't give you that space. I'm not saying by any means Dave Allen definitely wins, but I think it's a closer fight than what people are saying it out to be. I'd give it like a 60-40 Wilder maybe, but that 40 I'd be really backing Dave Allen, because I'd love to see Dave Allen get a huge win like that to cap off what's already been I guess you'd say, a bit of a memorable career and a memorable figure of British boxing.
Right now in the poll, no leads the answer with the most votes. Will Anthony Joshua win another title? Make sure to get your votes in on that poll. Lots of time left until that poll closes, just 6 minutes in. But no leads the way with 71% of the votes. Not a lot of Anthony Joshua backers here in the chat right now. Maybe more will flood in as the show goes on. Sasha English, this is a response from Cuss's System. Good to see Cuss in here. If Dubois wins against Usyk, why are you saying it will not be AJ versus Dubois next? Is it because AJ's scared, in your opinion, of Parker being mandatory? Nice Abbott wallet is still counting down. I didn't know the Abbott was placed in there. Certainly not by myself. And there's some debate going on in the chat as well. Too good to see that the listeners are all interacting with each other. I'm rooting for Dubois. Godfather Boxing says he's only in it for the money. Joseph Parker deserves his rematch. Parker certainly on the crest of the wave in his form. Stephen Boyle says, get up, Daniel Bloody Dubois. Jack Dutton on the 45 asks, oh no, where's Danny? I don't think he means Danny as in Daniel Dubois, but or Danny as in Danny Gilfillan, who's guested a couple of times. I think he means Danny as in Danny Flexen. Danny is good. He's just on the mend. A couple of health issues for Danny, but when he's fit and healthy to return, he will be back in one of the hot seats, that's for sure. So looking forward to the return of Danny Flexen, but just on the mend and getting well rested before his eventual return. Don't call it a comeback when he does come back. Cloud Strife says Triple Knee is getting slaughtered again. Why is it called Triple Knee? I think he is that born out of taking the knee against Joe Joyce, which looks like, for all intents and purposes, one of the best decisions of his career. I remember a lot of the hardcore audience of boxing fans had slated Daniel for that moment, and look at him now. And a lot of them said he would never win a world title, never saw it that way. I saw, and I remember being on record saying that Joe Joyce was a bad style matchup and thinking that Joe would win that fight, and it did turn to be, including Stan Dubois, who since you can see the interview on Seconds Out done by the aforementioned Danny Flexen, where Stan Dubois admits a moment of weakness in not being there for.
Oh no, we appear to may have possibly lost Eamon Khan. This is where I step into unknown shoes, and I'll go through the chat. Unless Eamon is mysteriously back. Nope, Eamon's gone. We've lost Eamon. Wow. Right, let me try figure out where we were in this chat first of all. I'll go to the comment about Triple Knees getting slaughtered again. I kind of agree with what Eamon's saying in the sense of at the time him saying it was a bad style matchup. Joyce is a very pressure heavy fighter at the time, and it's never gonna end well for Daniel Dubois against someone kind of similar to Wilder in the sense of most of the power for Dubois comes with those straight shots. Someone like Joyce is on your chest and also has that granite chin. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. But let's see what else. Chat. Let's set the table with a thumbs up. Is it a coincidence I've not been seeing DB Cooper 1 in the chat since Danny has taken ill? DB Cooper 1's just ducking all the smoke. He doesn't want to know. He doesn't want to be part of any of it. Hopefully he returns soon, though, along with Danny as well. We do give our best wishes to Danny. Have we got Eamon back, I believe? Eamon, are you there? Oh, sorry about that.
What was I saying before I
It
froze?
was about the comment from Cloud Strife. Triple Knee is getting slaughtered again. You were mentioning about Stan Dubois and a moment of weakness in the interview that Danny did.
Yeah, Stan had mentioned on that interview, a real good listen that Danny had done with Stan, that he admitted it was a moment of weakness for him not being by his son's side, and he'd cautioned the team to not take the fight with Joe Joyce for a number of reasons, and many of the reasons bordered on spiritual, because that is the way that Stan Dubois is inclined to be. So jumping back into the conversation in the chat. If I'm still in here, Vinny, yeah, you've got me lined up. Brilliant. Of course, a pro like you would have me ready and sorted. Daniel will win, says Sasha English. What on earth makes you think Daniel will win is offered back? Thunder Road says a big striker Thunder hits on the road as Thunder Road jumps back in. Chat, let's sit the table with a thumbs up. Is it a coincidence I have not been seeing DB Cooper 1 in the chat since Danny has taken ill? I don't think I ever managed to see a little side eye catch Danny typing away in the comments to under the guise of DB Cooper 1. I'm pretty certain that DB Cooper 1 isn't Danny Flexen, but the whole mystery of DB Cooper 1 is that you didn't know who or where he was at any point in time. So it could be anyone. Maybe it's a collection or group of people. We'll have to find out one day. Someone has to do some sleuthing. I reckon it's definitely someone in the industry, though. That's for sure. I have a belief, and I want him to win. We must. Big Chungus says we must protect Joshi at all costs. Protect him from what? Do you need protection, Joshi?
first of all, can we get rid of the nickname Joshy, please? That doesn't make me feel very comfortable. Do I need protection? No, I think I'm all good. I think I'm all good sitting here in my little base here in my room. I think I'm all good here. I don't really think there's anything that can harm me. So I appreciate the offer. I'll let Big Chungus know when I need some protection, I guess.
So, if you've been listening to Seconds Out for concurrent weeks, we put out the recommendation from the listeners to come up with Josh's boxing nickname, and the worst picks or worst suggestions would get onto the shortlist. And so far on the shortlist, we have Josh in the Bando Heart, if you remember that one, and we have Joshy Heart. So, of those two, if they're to be on the shortlist, which one do you prefer?
I'm taking in the Bando. Makes me sound somewhat like a bad man. Oh, that voice crack doesn't make me sound like a bad man, does it?
So because that's the one you want, we'll go with the other one, and Joshy Hart is the one that gets picked for now. Moving forward, Stephen Ball says it's Dubois' time. Could be. We'll find out on that Wembley date of Destiny Daniel in the Lions Den. Capital Commodities. Fury is older than AJ and has had more fights, and yet they want him to come out of retirement and fight AJ. Joshua is 36 years old, not 46 for God's sake. Canelo, Crawford, and others are the same age, but they're not fighting in the heavyweight division, is what would be the immediate response to your offering there, Capital Commodities. Josh, you've had a moment to think about your response to this question as it's on the poll, and we'll park the conversation for the chat there for the moment. Will Joshua win another world title? Josh, what do you think?
I'm going to go straight in and side with no. Just on the basis of we don't really know what's going to happen with the belts. I think the belts will fragment either way, but when you go down the WBC, you've got Caballero that holds the interim title. Then you go down WBA, you've got Fabio Wardley that holds the interim title. You go to the WBO and you've got Joseph Parker that holds the interim title. There's people already there that are ahead of Anthony Joshua. I know there's the value that AJ brings and the eyes that he brings, but I think we're slowly drifting into a new era in the heavyweight division where just because you're a big name doesn't mean you're going to get yourself straight back at a world title. And especially with the way that AJ lost last time in a world title challenge, I don't think it's fair that I know mentions of AJ being in the picture for the winner of Usyk Dubois 2. I don't like the idea of that. I don't think it's right no matter who you are, unless you're the defending champion and have held the belts for a while. Someone like Canelo, maybe, let's say Canelo was to lose in the fashion that AJ lost to. I'd be happy to see him get a world title shot straight and get an instant rematch. But with AJ, he hasn't held a world title since the defeats to Alexander Usyk. And it's not like the fight with Dubois was exactly competitive. So I don't think he'll go get an immediate rematch. And then when you look down that list of fighters that have either mandatories or holding these interim titles, it's a very long list. And let's say Dubois wins and tries to hold the belts. That's a long list of fighters that Dubois has got before he can possibly maybe even think of a voluntary defence. So I don't think Anthony Joshua will win another world title. And also on the sense of, I think those fighters that I have mentioned, I do give a lot of them a much better chance now of beating him than what I would have done pre-Daniel Dubois. So I think the talent and the skill in the heavyweight divisions are a lot higher now than what it was when AJ was on top. So I don't think he'll come back and win a world title, unfortunately. That's why I was saying go for those legacy fights and your Furies and your Wilders.
That's Joshy Hart, of course, his response. Have you put a vote in the poll, Josh? Make sure to do so. That's what we're asking people to do in the chat as well. So make sure to put your vote in. Hopefully, I've not frozen. I'm still going. Not froze. Stone Cold definitely could use a bit of frozen element because it's absolutely freezing. No, freezing. It's absolutely boiling. That's the complete opposite to what I wanted to say. But we'll move on to our next topic of conversation, and that is Wembley doubles. Joshy Hart might have been a little bit confused as to what this was, but it is the announcement. We're talking about Usyk versus Dubois 2. The announcement has been made as to some of the fights that feature on the undercard. Josh, I'm going to ask you what takes your fancy, what maybe is a fight that you're surprised by, or what your overall reactions are. But the fights as announced, if people in the chat and listening don't quite know, it is Lawrence Okoli is taking on Kevin Lorena for the WBC silver heavyweight title, almost like Lawrence Okolie is being positioned for one of those mandatory slots, the WBC one. Daniel Lapin of Team Alexander Usyk takes on Lewis Edmondson for the IBF Intercontinental Light Heavyweight title. Andrei Novitsky, undefeated Andrei Novitsky, takes on another undefeated Vlad Sirenko for the WBC International Heavyweight title. Battle of the undefeateds there. But that is the confirmed undercard so far. Joshy, what takes your fancy?
I like the Lawrence Okolie Kevin Lerena fight. I think it's a decent test for Lawrence Okolie. I don't think it's the best of tests, but it's definitely stronger than the debut. Obviously, when you look at some of the fights that Okolie's been mentioned in the React Poor at heavyweight, he's been targeting fights with Dillian White at heavyweight. They're obviously much more appealing opposition, much more appealing fights than Kevin Lerena. But Kevin Lerena definitely earns it. He's earned a good shot at a big payday, another big payday. Obviously, he's not his first time coming to a stadium in the UK. Fought Daniel Dubois on the Fury Chisora 3 undercard and dropped Dubois 3 times en route to, unfortunately, for the third round stoppage defeat. But he's proven his worth. Lerena gave Justice Hooney, who we saw in the UK recently, gave him hell for the 10th and final round of their bout on the Joshua and Ngannou undercard. He's proven that he can compete at heavyweight, and Lawrence Okolie isn't a tested heavyweight yet. Yeah, he's been tested at cruiserweight, but coming up to heavyweight's a whole different ball game. So I think Lerena can give him a good test. I still think Okolie wins in decent fashion, but I think there's a good test there. I really like Daniel Lapin versus Louis Edmondson. I do really like that fight. Came at a bit of a shock as well, especially with the board ordering Ezra Taylor versus Louis Edmondson, where obviously Louis Edmondson would defend his British and Commonwealth titles. But a win for Louis Edmondson there really does put him on a good path to go and climb those rankings and never know, navigate his way to a world title shot. So I'm happy. I'm happy with. Don't get me wrong. I would have liked to have seen the Ezra Taylor Louis Edmondson fight because it's been brewing nicely. Obviously, it was brewing in Bournemouth when Louis Edmondson defended his Commonwealth and then continued to spoil over in Nottingham after Ezra Taylor beat Troy Jones. But a good opportunity there for Louis Edmondson to push his way up the world rankings. And then the undefeated Ukrainians battling out. I don't know an awful lot about them, but I always like it when it's two undefeated. And I believe, I know Vlad Sirenko, he's signed by Queensbury as well, isn't he? A Queensbury. Right. Yeah, and then Novitsky, I'm sure I've seen him fight before, so I know he's featured on a couple, maybe 1 or 2 Riyadh season shows. But I'm not going to sit here and say I know a lot about them and give as detailed a rundown as I just have for the other 2 fights. But another fight I'll be sitting down and watching. It's always intriguing seeing a battle of undefeated fighters who are both well backed. So I'm sure that'll be a great fight as well.
Jumping back into the chat we have, I don't think AJ should retire, but it shouldn't jump the queue either. Get AJ Fury made and they can retire. Hopefully we get AJ versus Fury later this year. I've not seen any boxing skill development with Dubois under Charles and Farrell. I would like to see AJ versus Dubois again. Sasha English says AJ versus Big Baby Miller. That's a lot of whispers on the scene that maybe that'd be a fight that they might revisit. That'd be something that would sell, wouldn't it? I wonder how people would view that fight now in the wake of AJ's recent form too. AJ has plenty more to offer the sport, so all this retirement noise is nonsense. AJ versus Parker 2, AJ versus Dubois 2, AJ versus Cabiel are all big fights, and Custom agrees with Capital Commodities. AJ versus Parker 2 would be fire. I don't believe anything Fury says, including this retirement talk. Fury has retired more times than Kim Kardashian has had plastic surgery. Fury is patiently watching and waiting to see what AJ does. AJ should retire. He's great for the sport, but he doesn't have the heart anymore. Simon Harrison says, "What is this rebuild? He lost a fight and has the ranking based on that. He fights a heavyweight in the top 10, then earns a shot again. That's how it's supposed to work. He's not finished." Well said, mate. Yes, in response to Simon Harrison, nothing more to add. Carl Froch was saying AJ is finished. He won't win another world title and should retire. Also, it says here, I think AJ can win one of the belts that fragments, but he won't be undisputed again. Never was unified, maybe. I think you mean as opposed to undisputed. What else do you have here? we have here? AJ never had enough of a mean streak, says Bang Mateo. Roll the dice, says Nico Van Dam. That's certainly a phrase that is being normalized in the boxing world, hasn't it? Off the back of what happened against Dubois. AJ was baffled at the trash talk within boxers and actually said he wished boxers to talk to themselves like golfers and tennis players. Huge red flag to me. Huge. Yeah, the same Carl Froch that was told to retire after he got utterly beaten up for 12 rounds by Andre SOG Ward. But he didn't retire and went on to beat up Lucien Butte. Bang on Mateo, this ain't golf or tennis, says Porter. Listen, the Dave Allen that destroyed the run for ball is a handful for anybody, and you can take a punch also. Never write Dave Allen off. Frank Warren's Dubois and Moses Talma is the new face of British boxing. Forget AJ and Hearn, says Stephen Boyle. Not to mention AJ following Ruiz told to hold his titles and take pictures with his titles. That was a moment that a lot of boxing fans had talking and maybe pointed towards AJ's mentality. Get AJ and Fury made before no one gives a chit. Know what chit is? I can see a scenario where Usyk beats Dubois again, and they will give Parker a shot against Usyk. They'll make AJ versus Dubois too. Will Prince Patel ever fight someone of world level? He's probably he did fight on the Channel 5 card against Amir Khan, didn't he? Was that for the IBO title and lost? But yeah, Prince Patel, I'm not sure what the latest is on him. And to Joshua's Dark Room, I wish Lennox Lewis got that much attention back in the day. I think Lennox Lewis was massive news back in the day, especially with the controversy surrounding Canada and Britain and such. I think Lennox Lewis was definitely revered, maybe with the way that things have gone with celebrity and such as ramped up at another level. But there was more going on boxing wise then than it was now, I would say, especially at the top end in the UK. Lennox was pre-social media era, says Capital Commodities, essentially answering the question for me. If they had social media in his and Mike Tyson's time, they would have been mega, but they were still mega even without social media. Bang Mateo says Usyk retires undefeated. AJ versus Fury, AJ versus Wilder, those SOBs owe us those two fights. Eamon pissed off Richard Branson. Virgin Media letting Eamon know where the power lies. Definitely don't use Virgin Media. I don't even know what provider we are with. UFC is no better with Tom Jones. I'm not sure what that means. Dubois beats Usyk again, says Port. I don't know whether the first time was Usyk got the victory the first time. The problem Dubois has is that he's lost the element of surprise now, and he's worked Dubois out. He will be training to avoid the body shots, and his boxing skills are still sharp. Will Daniel throw more or less body shots? Maybe he'll be scared to do so because of what happened the last time. And then we'll park the chat from here. If your question was, can AJ win another world title? I would say yes. However, will he win another one is very limited. Talking of the undercard for the Wembley Stadium fight, going off the back of what Josh has said, of course, Lawrence Okoli versus Kevin Lorena. There were some rumors and whispers that, and I know that Lawrence was certainly searching for that Dylan White fight to materialize, and the whispers were that maybe Joe Parker and Dylan White might have a rematch. Frank Warren doesn't miss a trick, and I think Frank Warren, seeing that Italma and the speed that he's going, probably needs a name on his ledger for boxing fans who are appreciating his talent. I remember seeing when before I went into the boxing reporting world, I went to a show in Liverpool promoted by Matchroom Boxing. It was a collision course show, and it was, I think, Bellew and Cleverly were on the same card but in separate fights, but they were heading towards their rematch. And it had fighters such as Bellew, Cleverly, Rocky Fielding, but it also featured Anthony Joshua in one of his fights on the ascent when he was knocking people out. It might have even been against Matt Skelton, I think. But I remember loads of people being in the arena, appreciating AJ, cheering him on, and then half the arena essentially leaving after that point. And this was in Liverpool when Tony Bellew was there to main event. And that same feeling, although fans stayed in Glasgow to watch Josh Taylor, but it was the appreciation they had for Moses Talma, knowing the talent that he possesses and can get to, that had resonated with the boxing fans, and that drew parallels with that moment. I think what he needs now is one, for a fighter to give him rounds. him to know that he's in with someone that has been to better, or bigger and better stages and places than some of his previous opponents, and has that real still value um, in their name, which is why they've pitched him against Italma as opposed to against Lawrence Okoli, because they will believe that Italma has the higher ceiling and more longevity than Okoli. That's the theory that they've gone on. Of course, Okoli will look to prove that that's wrong, and he can do that by winning world titles at heavyweight, collecting the belts, but he has to do that by beating Kevin Lorena and finding himself in a better position for one of the mandatory shots for the titles, should they fragment, or if one chooses to retain all the belts. But Kevin Lorena is in front of him, and Kevin Lorena, I don't think it's a bad fight at all. I think it's a good prospect of a fight. Lawrence Okoli is still looking to establish himself at heavyweight, and the power is certainly carried up to heavyweight from cruiserweight and bridgerweight. But Kevin can take a punch, can smother, can be in fights later on, and can still sustain heavy output later on in fights as well. He's had a shortened camp or shortened notice, which maybe plays into Coley's hands. I think Kevin has said as much as it was a boxing news interview I caught a couple of minutes of that. He said he's had about 5 weeks to prepare for this one. So not the fullest and fittest versions of Kevin, but the guy has a lot of heart and will definitely be in there, and caused Dubois hell in their fight at Wembley. And he returns to Wembley to do a similar sort of thing and go that extra step in, this time catching the victory at the stadium. So can he do it against Lawrence Okoli? Certainly a good fight in prospect. So we'll wait and see on that one. I am also surprised that this isn't Lewis Edmondson versus Ezra Taylor. We'll wait to see news on that one. Maybe there's an injury to Ezra Taylor, or maybe there's a feeling that they can do that fight later on down the line. But Daniel Lapin, maybe they've had to satisfy the Usyk side of the equation here and get one of his fighters on. And Lapin looks good. Lapin looks like a good fighter, good prospect as well. You might even fancy Lapin to get the victory because he looks a very tidy type of fighter. Edmondson is as well, but always have that little bit of a mark on Edmondson's gas tank. He always seems to kind of, the form sort of goes later on in the fight, but he's definitely very tidy in those early rounds too. And Andrei Novitsky versus Vlad Tsarenko. Vlad Tsarenko trains with James Ali Bashir, who's worked with Alexander Usyk, who's worked with Vladimir Klitschko, and now is working with Vlad Tsarenko. Bashir talks about how good this fighter can be and is essentially just looking for any opportunity. They've had a number of fights now. They're at 22-0. Certainly they've beaten lesser opposition, but I've had a couple of names on the record. I think they're for Ustinov and I think they're for Andrei Rudenko, but these have been in previous years, but I've been waiting for that opportunity now to get a big fight. And Bashir had mentioned to me that he was actually scheduled to fight Dylan White on the Fabio Wardley bill before White pulled out. So that was the fight that was in the offing for Dillian. The rumors were Hemi Ohio was the other opponent, but it was supposed to be Tsarenko, according to Bashir. But now Queensbury, in not being able to provide that opportunity to Tsarenko, having signed him late last year, have now given the opportunity to fight Andrei Novitsky in a battle of the undefeated Ukrainian heavyweights, as Josh has said, managed by Igis Klimas, no less. So that's a real good fight in prospect as well, too. So watch out for that one and see if any more fights as well get announced. We'll come back to the chat as well, as we're expecting a guest to join shortly too. Won't reveal the name just yet, just in case anything means that they couldn't make it. But Josh will be leading them into the conversation and speaking to them. So make sure you get your questions in. Should I guess do arrive at the front door, and we'll let them in. Going back to the chat, so Stephen Ball offers a prediction. He says Dubois knocks Usyk out in the 7th with TNT body shot. Not sure what Tommy Fury's doing there. That's a Danny Flexen joke for you. I think that if Usyk had shown some decline when he fought Fury, now I'd be leaning towards Dubois, but Usyk is still functioning at an optimal level and he's far superior boxer to Dubois. I think Daniel knows and his team will change it up a bit. Can't wait for the fight. If Daniel goes headhunting, he will lose again. I think AJ can win one of the belts that fragment, but he won't be undisputed again. Sorry, I went to that one. That's AJ versus Fury makes sense for both guys. Agreed. Not only can they have a huge payday from the fight, but the winner automatically puts them back into contention. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, Jack? Very true, says Capital Commodities. The fight would be the biggest in history. Big Chunga says tiny little Joshi. AJ in the corner, fatal position. I wouldn't want to see anything like that, that's for sure. As the chat just jumps right down to the bottom, so I have to find myself again. People underestimate Lorena, I agree, but they forget that he dropped Dubois 3 times and gave Honey a tough fight. Agree, Lorena certainly can't be underestimated in this fight. I think he's in with a real live dog of a shot. Absolutely, Lawrence Okoli starts the favorite, but this is a Lawrence. Both of them, to be fair, aren't fighters who are particularly heavyweight fighters, you'd say. But looking to prove themselves and establish themselves at heavyweight. That's a good prospect, an intriguing prospect of the possibilities of the two. Hopefully, I'm not frozen. I'm still catching up. We have here AJ just not good enough. So Stephen Boyle, he held 3 belts, not 4. Anti Joshua corrects. Anti Joshua Darkroom corrects. Does this mean Lorena was so good or Dubois bad? Dubois was just injured. He caught an injury, and Shane McGuigan and the team were able to.
I can hear you, Eamon. I can hear you loud and clear.
Camera for some reason. Maybe the fan is freezing up my camera. There we go. We're back in as well. Get the Dubois time to go on Daniel. Bring it on home. We'll move on to into our next topic of conversation as we await our guest to come through, and that is light and camera means action. Josh, you're probably perplexed as to what that might mean, but I will tell you what it is. The topic of conversation is Turkey Al Shaker said under no uncertain terms that he doesn't want to see what he described as any more Tom and Jerry type of fights. Now, in the wake of the New York City show, which had all the ingredients for it to be a brilliant card, to deliver a brilliant fight night with a backdrop of something that was so innovative, intriguing, and different, something that you don't usually see in the boxing world. It didn't unfortunately deliver in terms of actual fight action. I think the Teofimo Lopez fight did have some moments in there, but for the fights that you had Devin Haney, you had Devin Haney in there, you had Rolly Romero versus Ryan Garcia. That fight, you would think, were two explosive type of fighters. You would believe that might garner a couple of knockdowns or moments of action, but you saw Devin Haney in there who looked, for all intents and purposes, to want to avoid any big shots and not want to engage because of maybe an alleged fear in the ring off of what happened off the back of that fight with Ryan Garcia, and a lot of conversations surrounding Devin Haney and his mindset should Devin get back into the ring. But that fight, along with Devin Haney versus Ramirez, meant that those two fights didn't deliver when they should have. And Turkey Al-Sheikh said that he doesn't want to see those type of fights. But it does mean that he has listed a number of fighters that he does want to see potentially take their place on the Canelo versus Crawford undercard. Those names on the list feature Christian Mbili, an all-action type of fight against Masha Selecki very soon. Super middleweight, looking for an opportunity at Canelo Crawford, whoever the winner is. Mohamed Alakel, rising Saudi Arabian talent, who's trained under British Boxing Hall of Famer trainer Joe Gallagher. Reito Sutsumi, he's featured on the Ring Magazine cards. Justin Villoria, Emiliano Alvarado, Jamar Talley, Abdullah Mason, who's in with Noakes very soon, and Nishant Dev, who was out on the Matchroom card this last weekend against Richardson Hitchins. What are your thoughts about this, Josh, and the talent that have been named on the list of Turkey Al-Sheikh to reach out to him to get onto this undercard? Is that something you want to see more fights that have more action. Certainly, Dana White, who's now partnering with Turkey Al Sheikh to deliver this card, has been one to create fight nights that have. In fact, we'll have to park it for the moment, Josh, but I will hand the baton over to you as our guest has arrived. Josh, over to you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen in the chat, I'd like to welcome in European light heavyweight title challenger in just under now 2 weeks' time, Shakan Pitters. Shakan, first of all, thank you for joining us. And how is everything?
All good, thank you, man. Pleasure for being having me here. All good.
Very,
Uh,
very good
Typical
to hear.
training, catching on a bit of the rays, as you can see.
Absolutely. Just under 2 weeks to go now until you finally challenge for the light heavyweight title, European light heavyweight title, should I say. It's been a long time coming this for yourself, hasn't it? Are you just excited now that Fight Week is just around the corner and you're nearly there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, I've been in these camps, I've been in these positions before. It's boxing, it's the sport we choose sometimes. Things take a little bit more of a time, but it's always good when fight week's approaching. You just pray that all's well. Obviously on my side, of course, first and foremost, which it is, and all's well on that side as well. That there's not going to be any issues. So yeah, it was good. I like the whole fight week when it's approaching.
Obviously, it was very close to falling out of picture. Again, the fight was originally set to take place in Galway, now in Hull. When you first got the message from Izzy in the call that the fight wasn't going to be taking place in Galway anymore, was there any doubts that you might not be fighting for the European title, or did they reassure you straight away that you would still be fighting that day?
I never. Well, you just never know with boxing. We get promised certain things, and this isn't from Izzy or anything. It's just, I think dealing with the EBU sanction, it's out of British sort of hands. It's not like the British title. So, obviously there was that question, but when I got reassured that obviously, I've still got the mandatory position, it was always a good light, and it felt good to obviously still have that position. There was no fault of my own and no fault of my opponent neither at the time. It was just obviously, these things happen in training, and we've got our house prominent, so we've got to obviously make sure that first with everything we're good with that health wise. So that's what I've done, and obviously on certain decisions it never happened, but yeah, I'm here now and I'm good. I'm fit. I'm well. I'm ready.
And Brad Ray, the man in the opposite corner to you, obviously originally set to be Daniel Dos Santos, but he's now been stripped of the title. So you and Brad Ray will clash together. Are you excited? What do you make of Brad Ray as an opponent? First of all, what do you know about him?
Decent record from Manchester. A good fighter. He's obviously had some hard luck in his career, like a lot of people do at times. Good fighter, and these are the fights. Obviously, he seems like he's excited to be in good fights, whatnot. I'm excited to be in good fights, and it makes it good for obviously with the belt on the line. So, he's gonna come, but I'm also gonna come. Not in any that way, pause, as they say, but we're both gonna, obviously, he's gonna bring it, but I know what I gotta do, and I'll obviously, I always bring it in all my fights, man, it's gonna be a good fight. I look forward to it. He seems like a good person. I ain't got nothing bad to say about him. I respect the fact that, he's up for challenges, he steps in, he takes the opportunities and things like that, but yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? We settle our differences in the ring. Not that there's any animosity, but it's the fight game at the end of the day. He's trying to take something I want, and everything like that. So, yeah, man, I've just got to go and do the business.
What do you think the big separating factor is between yourself and Brad? Obviously, fairly similar records, but do you think it's your experience, maybe?
Obviously, on paper, I'm definitely more experienced. I think this is first 12 rounder, but not to take that aside. I once had my first 12 rounder and once had my first 10 rounder, and that I got through that as a breeze. So doesn't mean nothing. But I'm just like, yeah, I think obviously I'm more experienced. I've been in these, I've headline shows. I've been on the big shows, British shows, and things like that. So yeah, I think obviously I'm more experienced. They think I'm obviously older. I'm fresh. Like I'm a young 30 plus years old. I'm very fresh, but I don't really, again, like I said, I don't look at any telling differences or factors. I just know that, whatever it is, I'll find the openings myself or I'll see the mistakes and I'll take them. And yeah, I look for my own telling factors what will separate us on the night.
And obviously, headlining on the zone as well. It's a big opportunity. Obviously, already a great slot on that Galway show, but to be bumped up to main event, does that add a little bit more extra pressure in your mind?
Not for me. I love it, man. I love the fact, like I said, it's not my first rodeo, as I say. I've headlined a couple of shows now in my career. Um, so I don't know whether it's his first or whatnot. I don't know, but it don't matter. At the end of the day, you got to fight, and I'm just ready to fight. I love it. I love the whole, everything about the whole fight game. I love it. It's my comfort zone in there. I really enjoy what I do. So yeah, it's good. It's good to obviously headline again another show, another bout, and yeah, it just makes it sweeter. Obviously, getting the win, and you know, another show ticked off, headlined, another bout.
Absolutely. Eamon, I believe you have a few questions for Shakan.
Absolutely good to see it, Shaq. And you wouldn't have thought that the
Good
sun
to
would
see you
shine
too.
in Birmingham, would you?
Don't disrespect Birmingham, man. Birmingham got all the sun down here, man.
We get none of the sun, and even in the sun, it don't look that great either. But no, it's good
You know,
to
I'm in
see
a
you.
nice little shaded area. I'm trying to preserve my tan for when the TV lights are on me on the main event. I don't want to be, I want to be the right complexion.
Absolutely. Look, this opportunity it
Mm.
feels like it slipped through your fingers a couple of times. Do you, in the back of your mind, hold a little bit of doubt that it might not happen? Do you have to put that aside?
Doubt and whatever not in boxing, I don't control the business end in the sense of whether the promoters get it over the line, whether the EBU wanna, whatever sanction bodies they want to deal with. All I know what I can do is control my training and the fight, and how I fight. And I don't get in all the political. I know the game in that sense. Like, I'm not stupid. Like, I know my ins and outs and what I need to know. But I'm I focus on the training, the fight side of things. That's hard enough, man. We're putting our body through countless days of training. So that's more than enough for me to focus on. If the fight was to fall through, as they have in the past, not this one, but as we've all had fights fall through, it's out of our control, It's only like with the Galway show, for example, I sympathise with the fans, who's obviously took their time off work, spent their hard-earned money on tickets, booked hotels, booked rental cars, booked so much things, and it's hard to look at them and tell them that, sorry, you've lost out on this and you lost out on that, and when this happens, although they know it ain't the boxers' faults, we feel bad for them because it's like their credibility or trust in us in a way of our fight getting over the bridge. They sometimes will think, well, I'll wait till last minute to see if it's going to happen, so that's the crap part. But it is hard when, your loved ones and your family and your friends are losing money on it. But yeah, apart from that side, we've got no control on it. We've just got control on the fight and how we present ourselves on the day.
What's John's read on Brad? And speaking to you, but just off camera a little bit when you were at shows about this fight, of course, supremely confident about getting the victory. But if you were to say one thing that Brad does better than you, what would be that thing that you'd pick?
I don't believe anyone like who I'm up against. I don't put in my head that this person does anything better than me. I think I've got a lot of style, flair in the ring, everything. Like I said, I respect him as a fighter. That's enough for me. I'm not here to sing his praises. You know what I mean? I'm here to know what I've got to do, and I've take full confidence in the training and the preparation I've had. I always do that going into any fight, any opponent, because I know how hard I train. I know how I put my body through. So I believe that, you know, whoever I'm against, I will beat them. And that's just testimony to how I train and my focus on my training. He's a good fighter. He's got a good record. Yeah, he's a good fighter. I don't know until I get in the ring what kind of fight it'd be like. You know, I know what I gotta do, but I don't know to rate him what I feel like he does good or what he does bad. To be honest.
That European title, what it does if you capture it like you plan to do, is it puts you in the rankings for all the organizations, get you that opportunity and gets you that title. It's a bit of a bargaining chip too. How far off do you feel you are from a world title shot should you capture the European?
Yeah, I believe them things are close. You know, I'm at a stage in my career when I want to be pushing forward. I don't want to just stay on the domestic scenes. You know, and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of good fights there. You know, and obviously if it all makes sense, then of course I'll grab them with both hands as well. But again, I've got Brad Ray in front of me, who's a young, hungry fighter himself. He's gonna, you know, he's had opportunities. I don't know how frustrating it is where they don't present themselves. So I don't know how many fights have fell through for him. But obviously he's gonna try and bring the heat and things like that. So I'm more than confident I'll match and do more and bring the heat as well. But like I said, I feel I'm close there, but we gotta get the job done. Obviously June 28th.
Before we brought you in, I was just introducing the topic of conversation surrounding Turkey or Shakan his want for not to see any more of these Tom and Jerry type of fights. Now, you're never that type of fighter who's avoiding action. And if we're using the analogy of Tom and Jerry, you're Tom the cat looking to get that knockout. But do you as a fighter, when you digest those statements, do you think, right, okay, there's opportunities for me to get on big cards, big opportunities, and big paydays? If I push and get a big knockout, I can knock on the door to say I deserve an opportunity. Is that in your mind?
Whether without that or not, obviously doing business with Turkey Al Sheikh is always will put a smile on any fighter's face. On any fighter's face, sorry. Um, Obviously for me, it's just like in the ring. In the ring, it's a different vibe. You know, you're thinking about who's in front of you. And when that person's in front of you, you weren't thinking about money. You're thinking about your health. Thinking about landing before this guy could land on me. So if the opportunity presents itself, you know, I don't go looking for these things. I think early on in my fights, starting off, you go looking for these things, they never come. And most of your knockouts come when you're not even looking for them, you know, like. But if the opportunity, like I said, it presents itself or I see the openings, then I take it. And I just feel like that's the stage where I'm at in my career. You know, I'm more seasoned, I'm more experienced and knowledgeable in myself and boxing, to know when to step it up the levels, when to do certain things, and I feel I'm at that stage now, and it's crazy because now I look back and I'm like, "God, everything never clicks straight away, but it all makes sense now as you're going forward." You know, in the pro game and things, but yeah, they like look, I've made it, I've made it clear in the past, like obviously I'll be open to those kind of things, you know, fighting abroad, Saudi, whatnot, who wouldn't? So that would definitely be something, you know, I'll get the job done. And when I get that done, then, you know, Izzy and the team knows my intentions with that. We could obviously get whether it's a fight would be, you know, with a top world level fighter or, you know, a domestic fighter who's up there as well. And we could get it on like over there, you know, or even over here on any of the Riyadh cards.
You said about there's a lot of good fights to be made domestically. There's one that's been rumored, and that's Anthony Yarde and Callum Smith. Who would you favour in that one if that does get made?
I was impressed with Callum Smith's last performance. But again, generally, not even the saying this, but it's one of them. We've seen Callum Smith shy away when he's got, but someone like a better Bev in front of his face, but Yard ain't a better Bev, obviously. As well as Yard's kind of looked a bit the same, like with certain fights. Like he's always gone for it, but he's sometimes had his performances where you probably look and think, oh, he could do more, whatnot. But um, I generally wouldn't know in that one man who'd win. Generally, they're both good fighters, though.
No worries, Shakan. It's good to see. I'm going to pass you back to Josh, who's got a couple more questions before you
Good to
get
see you
back
as well,
to
man.
your training in the tan. Josh, go ahead.
Shakan, here on Seconds Out Live, we run a poll every week when we do our live, and this week the question is: will Anthony Joshua win another world title? Do you believe he will, or do you believe he won't win another world title?
Who's up there now? You've got Daniel Dubois, Usyk. Uh, he's still in the mix, man, but it's like he's having a bit too much time out the ring right now. I know he's trying to probably catch up on life what he's missed, because boxing is hard, man, when you're missing out on special family things. We're all living this life one take, as I say. So you have to make time for family and catching up and doing certain things. But I believe he had an injury or something like that. Possibly, I believe he can, but it all depends how he comes back. We need to see how he's like obviously with the layoff out the ring and how he is since he's had his injury, and how he is there. Like I like Anthony Joshua. I hope he does well. He's done a lot for the British boxing, and he's gave a lot of big opportunities for a lot of fighters, and things like that. So yeah, I'd like him to. I'd like it to. I hope he does. I hope he does. But it all depends on the kind of fighter he is. I don't think anyone should judge a fighter from any loss. Like he lost to Daniel Dubois, who got caught with a good shot. Daniel Dubois is a decent fighter. Everyone was saying he should retire and his crap and all this when he lost to Joe Joyce, and everyone was saying Joe Joyce the next one to beat Wilder, and look how quick the tables they've all turned around. So he's as good as your last fight, really. But yeah, hopefully he comes back and he does some more good justice to British boxing.
And then just a couple more from me. Can I get a prediction for yourself versus Brad Ray? How do you see yourself getting on?
How do you see me winning? How do you
I
see me
don't,
winning?
I don't think I'm allowed to give my verdict on that as a reporter. I've got to remain neutral down the middle.
I remain neutral. You tell me off cam now when you're playing. Look, I prepared for 12 hard rounds. What not? I prepared for 12 hard rounds. So how it ends, how it's gonna end. Whether it's decision, whether it's knockout, I prepared for 12 hard rounds. Even
Absolutely.
even more if I have to, because I got it in me.
Fair enough. Just one thing from the chat, not a question, but Shakan sounds like Lyndon Arthur. Brum accent, question mark. Pardon my American ignorance from Thunder Road.
I sound like Lyndon Arthur. Listen, Lyndon Arthur stutters about 50 million times before he says a word, and I like Lyndon. It's cool. Don't say I sound like him. That's a
Just about
violation.
100 miles or so separating that, but you'd have thought
Yeah,
Peaky
now Lyndon's
Blinders put
cool.
us on the map, but
Lyndon's
apparently
cool,
not in
man.
America.
Yeah, in America they think that all in the UK same, but I guess you know what? In certain states in America, my knowledge possibly would be. Well, I've got family out there. All my family's in like Florida, but um, my knowledge of certain states will have to Google to see how far it is and things. But Manchester ain't that far from Birmingham, so it's all good, man. We're all one city down here.
When you went out to America, did they pick up on your accent?
Yeah, all the time, man. But they only know one place. They wouldn't say, "Oh, you from Birmingham." They're like, "Oh, you from London?" And then it gets to a point you're like, "Yeah, I'm from London." Like you don't say anything anymore, and then straight away it's just like, "Oh, you met the Queen, you met the King, you've been to
No way.
Buckingham Palace." Honestly, that's a lot of their knowledge. So I say I'm from Birmingham. They wouldn't know what to say of any good place down here in Birmingham. They're just generally just like, "Oh, if you say London." automatically it's like, oh, have you met the Queen? Have you been to, what is it called, Buckingham Palace? Have you this? I'm just like, yes, 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 and yeah, they're a bit gullible, man. The Americans. Mm.
Well, Shakan, really appreciate you joining us today. It's been really good to talk. And we wish you the best of luck for just under 2 weeks' time, June 28th in Hull, live on DAZN, your challenge for the European light heavyweight title. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you both. Thank you both. You have a good day. Enjoy the sun.
Appreciate it, Shaq.
You too, Shakan. Have a good one. I think I'll be there. I will see you there, Shakan. Best of luck, my friend.
Good man. Shaq, put it on you. What are your prediction? You didn't give it to him, Josh.
Unfortunately, as a reporter, we have to stay nice and.
He's still here. He wants it.
He's still here.
If you think he'll beat me, that's fine. If you think I'll beat him, that's cool. I like to know you.
Vinny, get back on. Vinny, get back on. There we go. Go on. He's putting it on you, Josh. What are you saying?
What, is this recorded?
Yeah,
It's live.
That's what you gotta say, man, because you know what it is. Reporters, you ask us the questions all the time. It's interesting to see what you lot think. Don't say it in the office behind the coffee. Just say it. I won't take offense. I ain't bothered. I'm in the ring. I gotta do what I gotta do.
Well, first of all, I'd like to ask Eamon who Eamon thinks is going to win.
He's putting the responsibility onto me. I think Shaq is the favorite in the fight. Yeah. So by proxy, I'd say that Shaq will win. It's Shaq's to lose.
He's clever though, you know. He's just said what's the bookies at.
No. Well, I don't bet. So I don't look at the bookies. So
Yeah.
I genuinely, I wouldn't know what the odds were. But I would say that you were the favorite of the fight, and it'd be yours to lose for sure. That's not to say Brad can't win. But I see more routes to victory for yourself than for Brad. Josh, you're not getting off the hub. You could go the contrarian and say Brad now. We could split the panel here.
No, when I think about the fight, when I run through it in my mind and think how it's going to go, we've not seen Brad in as tough a fight since that Tyler Denny defeat, where he did struggle. Okay, he was maybe at a weight where he probably shouldn't have been making that type of weight anymore. But I think at this level, I think experience is going to come in a big part. And obviously, someone like Shakan, he's been at a higher level than what Brad has, and I just think it'll be a tough competitive fight, but I think Shakan just edges it on points. But I'm not completely writing Brad off in this either. I do think I was speaking to Izzy Asif the other day, and I said when I look through the fights that he's put on with GBM, I do think this is up there. It's probably one of the biggest 50-50 fights he has put on. So I do genuinely, I'm not just saying this because Shakan said, I would stand on this and say I've been struggling to pick a winner. But right now, I think I'd go towards a Shakan Pitters points win.
Generally, no one in our camp is overlooked Brad. He's a good fighter. He's a young, hungry, good fighter. I gotta be on my game. I've also trained very hard. Like I'd always train hard for any fighter because it just takes one banana skin. Brad's a solid fighter with a good record. You know, we've been pro, I believe, Black Nail off the same time. So, you know, I've gave all dues, you know, all due respect to this camp. With every camp I have, trained very hard, man. I put my work in, so I'm looking forward to a good fight. And like I said, he don't seem like a bad person. I ain't here to badmouth the guy. You know, we're both fighting each other, and that's just that. I've got my reasons, he's got his reasons, and that's just that, man. We make a good show on June the 28th, and we get it on.
Would you call him a fully fledged light heavyweight?
I generally don't know until I'm in there. With him, obviously, he's had many fights at. Was it super middle? Was it super middle? Was that with Tyler? Then
he was at middle. I think it was at middle. Yeah, it was at 160, I believe.
It's a bit of a jump, man. But at the end of the day, only him and his team know what's right. You know, I'm not here to assess whether he's right for what weight or not. You know, I've obviously the bigger guy. I'm fast. I'm rangy. I've got a lot more arse into my game though. But he's gonna also have his think what they feel like they can exploit, whatnot, in it. But I don't like I said. He's had a loss. Tyler Denny, decent fighter. You know, he's gone to win a European champion as well, to win the European title himself. So, yeah, makes sense for a good fight.
Absolutely. Well, Shakan, do really appreciate your time. Now that you've got the predictions out of us, no, we do look forward, and I'll see you there in Hull next Saturday. Your time.
It's like, look, in your next interview now, it's gonna be like, fuck off. You said Shaq's gonna win this stuff.
You bullied him into it.
Great God. No, Shakan, really
Nice one,
appreciate
my
it.
lads. Take care, man. Have a good day, all right?
Good, thank you.
Good man.
Cool, man. Cool.
Bit of character as well. We love our fighters to have a little bit of character to them, pulling it on our toes as well when we ask the questions fully or in their right to do so. Okay, so we were talking about before Shaq joined in about Turki Al-Sheikh and his statement. Josh, I was asking you about those fighters that were on the list and the prospect of certain fights not getting onto the card should they not be an all-action type of style fight. Is that the way to go, do you feel? And those are the fighters that would be on your list. Are there any other fighters you'd like to see? Shakan, of course, is one that you'll now say, so you can get into his favour, of course, especially if he delivers a knockout and wins that European title. But are there any other fighters you want to see too?
I'm going to go down this domestic route of fighters that I'd like to see on there when we talk about all action. I think straight away, you've got to get Sam Eggington on that list. Sam Eggington, while he may not push on that world level, if Turkey just wants to put on good fights that the fans are going to enjoy, I can't think of many better contenders than someone like Sam Eggington. God knows how long he's been around for now. I believe he's only like 31 or 32 years old, though. I know he's not actually very old, but he has been there and he has won an IBO world title as well. So he has kind of seen it all, and he just delivers every time. Even last time out against Lee Cutler, it was still, in my opinion, the fight of the night on that card. I think if you want to look for a nice little dance partner, might require a move up when I say this man in action this weekend as well. But Conor Walker, in recent time, he's really gone on to deliver some extremely exciting fights. I think a fight that will always stick out for me. And to this day, obviously, I've not been to a handful of boxing events. I've been to my fair few, but I'm sure, like someone like Eamon's been to a lot more than me. But one of the best fights I've ever watched in person was Conor Walker versus Cyrus Pattinson. I just think that was all-out war for the 8 rounds it lasted. I'm still pretty gutted I can't find highlights of it anywhere on YouTube, because for the 8 rounds that Cyrus and Conor stood there, it was 8 of the most action-packed rounds I've seen with my own eyes at a boxing event. So they're the only 2 I can really think of right now. I'm sure there's many, many more. But as you can't tell, I'm a little bit flustered still after having it stuck on me by Shakan Pitters on this episode of Seconds Out Live. Didn't expect that today. Definitely did not expect that. But no, I think overall I do like what Turkey's doing here, in a sense of, as fans, we want to be entertained. We want fights that are lively and fights that are back and forth. But in the same sense, skills pay the bills. Skills tend to be where you see the best fighters go. Someone like Devin Haney, okay, well, it wasn't the best performance and excitement value. You've got to do what you've got to do sometimes to win a fight. I think some fighters might not like hearing things like that from Turkey, trying to dictate away how fighters fight, but I don't think he's going to dictate how fighters fight. I think he's just going to be able to pick who he wants, and pick those fighters that will deliver exciting fights. So if it means we're going to see maybe not as world level fights, but we see more action packed, more 50-50 ones, then I'm all for it. I'm absolutely all for it.
Right, we're going to run through a number of comments and then move on to our last topic, because we are overspilling on Seconds Out Live with all the... We've been spoiled for a good talking guest in Shakan Pitters, but time is running out and time is of the essence. So we'll get back into the chat. Untouchable says AJ has the power to iron out Fury, but his confidence is shot to bits and he seems to freeze on the big stage and forget how to fight. Don't forget to vote in the poll as to the question that is, will Anthony Joshua win another world title? You have a number of votes in, and the odds have shortened, or the percentages have shortened, but maybe not by enough. So get your votes in as to whether you think he'll win a world title or not. Thunder Road says, thank you, Josh, for securing Shakan Pitters. Good luck to him. Another good get for Seconds Out Live. Jack Dutton says, this guy could fight Joshua Boazzi. We should have put that to him. Didn't quite get to him, though, unfortunately. Is Tom and Jerry another I haven't been born yet moment for Josh? County Lines Heart. I don't get County Lines Heart.
Neither do I. But no, I'm not that young. I know Tom and Jerry, for God's sake. I wasn't born yesterday, right? I know Tom and Jerry. Great show. Thank you very much.
I read Benavidez might move up and wants to fight with Opataya. We'll wait and see on that one. Watch the space. What else do we have here? Seconds Out Live makes my Monday better. Martin Mulligan, good to see you in here. You being in here makes our Monday better as well too. Thunder Road says, I didn't know Lyndon was from Manchester, always associated with Birmingham. Whoops, yeah, about 100 miles north Manchester is. Love Manchester as well. Used to work there. We'll move on to our next topic of discussion, and that is Hitchins Ride. Hitching a Ride, Green Day song. But Richardson Hitchins is hitching a ride to the top as he defeated George Kambosos Jr. It was a good fight. George Kambosos builds, always gives the action and looks to entertain, but it was a step too far for him, having captured unified world titles in an epic moment against Teofimo Lopez and traded off of that and got some big opportunities. Never one to cherry pick, and said as much, said to F that in the post-fight interview. Off the back of the defeat to Hitchins, he wanted to fight the best, test himself, and see where he could get to, and he fought off the back of it. Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Basil Lomachenko has since retired, put himself in with Richardson Hitchins, losing effort, but is now going to address his future. What did you think of the fight? What do you think of the future of Kambosos and of Hitchins, who also said he's a free agent, which Eddie didn't like either?
Absolutely, you make a great point there, even though, first of all, I was really impressed with Richardson Hitchins on Saturday night. Going into it, when I was looking at the bookies odds and I saw George Kambosos priced at 7-1, I was like, oh, that's a bit steep. Like, there might be a bit of value in that. But Richardson Hitchins was just a step above the entire time. He was just outlanding him with everything. It was, while exciting, it was more exciting just the fact of the domination from Richardson Hitchins. He barely seemed in trouble. As for where Kambosos goes now, I'm not too sure. I think he can still work his way back up, and he is such a huge name out in Australia.
Paro?
Yeah, I believe Liam Paro fights this week or next week. When I was doing my BoxRec scout, my daily scout on BoxRec, I came across it. I'm sure he fights pretty soon. I think that's probably the obvious fight to make it. It's a fight that will sell very well over in Australia and probably do insane numbers over there, really, especially when I speak to people and they say how big of a name Kambosos really is over in Australia. It probably makes sense for him to have a big showdown with Liam Paro. So, yeah, and as for Richardson Hitchins, I suppose it is those big dogs, those big names. I quite like the Teofimo Lopez fight. Devin Haney would be interesting, but I'd more like to see Richardson Hitchins versus Teofimo Lopez. I think both coming off the back of very impressive performances. I think it's an obvious unification fight to make, and I remember reading from the Ring magazine as well that Turkey has said that he will only deal with Richardson Hitchins if Matchroom is involved. So maybe Hitchins might not slide away to be a free agent just yet. Maybe might continue to work with Matchroom in some capacity. But yeah, overall a great night of boxing. Big shout out to Andy Cruz as well. I thought he looked phenomenal on Saturday night as well. I thought Andy Cruz was probably the best performance of his career as well. So yeah, big shout out to him. Not that he needs it.
What did you think of Adam Maka? You called him a serious talent on your social. Did he prove to be the serious talent?
I thought he was good. I was always a bit intrigued by the move to debut him in New York. Obviously, him being a British man. I was a bit shocked to see that, but no, I was impressed. He did what he had to do against an opponent like that, an opponent that was very awkward. But no, I think Adam did everything that he needs to do. He's only 18 years old. There's no point in even trying for people to say what his ceiling is and whether he's good right now or not, because there's so much time for him to learn still. And with the backing that he's going to get, I'm sure he'll be moved at the right speed. I don't think he'll be moved too fast, but I don't think he'll be moved too slow. He's got a great group of people around him, with obviously Matchroom, Sam Jones managing as well. But I thought he did exactly what he needed to do. Good to get the stoppage. So yeah, I was very impressed with Adam Maka.
Maybe Hitchins goes on to fight Devin Haney. He said as much that he wanted to fight Devin Haney in that post-fight interview, but I don't think he'll get that opportunity anytime soon. That about wraps up Seconds Out Live for this week's edition. Had to come to a bit of an abrupt halt because of time constraints, but we'll go to the chat for one last time and close off the poll. So, Vinny, you are welcome to close off the poll as I go to the chat one last time, see what people are saying. Just the offering here from Jack Dutton says Keyshawn Davis moving to 140 now. So, Keyshawn Davis, who missed the weight and didn't have the opportunity to fight recently, he won't be fighting. Keyshawn Davis and Richard Hitchins, or Andy Cruz. I think he's got bigger fish to fry with. Maybe Andy Cruz, with Andy in another. What's the way to describe this fight? Showcase type of fight against a game as ever Japanese fighter, but looking for a bigger fight and a bigger opportunity. Maybe it is Keyshawn Davis, but we'll see. Thanks, lads. Enjoy your week. We'll do. Off to abroad to cover some of the boxing events, so do look out for Seconds Out. The poll is over, and the question we asked you is: will Anthony Joshua win another world title? No comes in at 67% of your votes, and yes comes in at 32% of the votes. So not a lot of steam on the Anthony Joshua train towards capturing one of the world titles should the belts fragment, or in a rematch with either Usyk or Daniel Dubois. So that is the word for now. And the final word goes to Joshy, or County Lions Heart, to close off this week's Seconds Out Live.
Well, as always, thank everyone for watching. It's been a good one. It's been a great one, some would say. I hope you enjoyed the guest that we brought in for this week, Shakan Pitters. Like we've said, fights next week for the European light heavyweight title. But before we even come on to next week's action, some great action this week. I'll be taking a hot seat down in Birmingham as Galal 5 returns to the ring against Francisco Rodriguez Jr. His first fight back since his stunning win over Sonny Edwards back in November. A brilliant undercard to go along with that. So I look forward to bringing you as best content as I can get. I'll bring you the very best in the boxing scene. But until next week, thank you all as always for watching. I'll see you again very soon.